blinded by the light? The song, yeah. Wasn't a recipe. You're too young anyway, Linz, to remember that.
No, I rock it.
I mean, I prefer Rocket Man.
Rocket Man, yeah. That
I think as we journey through Lent, and we think about blinded by the lights, I mean, Peter put up on our sign, 2 or 3 Sundays ago, be the light. So now we're talking about blinded by the lights. And we need to think about that a little bit. But as we journey through Lent, and as we are journeying to get closer to God, which has been our goal this whole Lent, we also need to keep in mind that for Jesus, he's journeying toward Calvary. Okay? And so that last few verses we read, they said this man is not from God, for he does not observe the Sabbath. Well, that wasn't in our A. He didn't say, how to observe the Sabbath, just to keep it holy. But others said, how could a man who is a sinner perform such signs? And they were divided. And it's that whole division thing that is such, oh gosh, it's such what Jesus wants us not to be. But it's part of his journey to heal us and our divisions. And that's how we're going to get there. When we look at how this opens in John, they saw a man blind from birth, and his disciples asked, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Now, we all know that in the Hebrew Scripture in the Old Testament, in those times, if someone was born with a disability, or someone even had a hardship, like Job, you must have sinned. That was the understanding. You must be a sinner. You must have sinned. There has to be a reason this terrible thing happened to you that you're at fault for. Do you all think that about sin? Is that what it is? And we just talked about this in book club on Wednesday night, and we talked about Paul Tillich, who's a 20th century theologian, says that sin is separation. It's what separates us from one another and God. And our rabbi was there that night. He's not here today, but the rabbi was at book club, and he said, and he gave us this Old Testament understanding, and we talked about that before. Sin is missing the mark. Remember that? We talked about that, missing the mark. That we're trying to hit the mark, but we miss because we're human. But sin isn't terrible things happen to you, and so you must be a terrible sinner. No, that's not what we believe. And yet that was the common understanding there. So, the very first thing Jesus says is, neither this man nor his parents sinned. What this is, and perhaps you remember this because we did a little bit of John earlier in Lent, is in the book of John there are no miracles. Remember that? So instead of calling this a miracle that the man who was born blind was given back his sight, remember what we call that in John? For those of you who are new, we have these quizzes on occasion. They're called signs. Remember? They're called signs in the book of John. And so there are 7 signs in the book of John. This is the 6th of the 7. Okay? We read about the first one. Remember what the first one was? Yeah, we do. We're just not going to help you because we're having a Tory moment here. The wedding feast at Cana. Yes, exactly. That was the first one. The second one was, and we haven't read this one, was healing the Galilean official's son. The third one was healing, and this was in our reading in book club last week, healing the invalid at the pool of Bethesda. If you remember that one. Which is a whole interesting sermon in itself, and I don't have time to do it today. I know that disappoints you. The fourth one is feeding the 5,000. The fifth one is walking on the Sea of Galilee. This is the 6th, and the last one is, does anybody know what the last one is in John? I think it's one of the most heartrending ones, when he raises Lazarus, his friend. Yeah, that's the last one. So that's where we are in terms of these. And these are the signs that show us what we read in the very first chapter of John, that Jesus is the light of the world. That Jesus is the light of the world. And so, later on in service, Ruth Ann's going to be singing Amazing Grace, My Chains Are Gone. And again, it's all about, now I see. Now I see. And the song was written because the person who had been formerly a slave owner saw how wrong that was and wrote this song. And so it's important for us to kind of grasp that that's what's happening here. Lots of times when we talk about Scripture or a passage we have for today, we kind of say, okay, what is the meaning for us? And so when we look at neither this man nor his parents sinned, he was born blind, that God's works might be revealed in him. You know what? I was looking at that this morning again, and I thought, that's not really about us. We get that. That's not about that. That's really about the folks here in the first century needing to get that. What is for us, I think, is the next verse. Or excuse me, the end of that verse, which is, he was born blind so that God's works might be revealed in him. Because I'm like, whoa, what does that mean? So I promised you dialogue homily, so this is the part where y'all get to chime in. What does that mean? He was born blind so that God's works might be revealed in him.
Yep.
So they know that Jesus was the Savior? That God's works would be revealed in him by Jesus curing him. That's a great answer. Yeah. Did you go to seminary? Anybody else? Sue, it's your birthday. You want to jump in? No. You know, I was thinking about this verse, and I was thinking about that many people from this church were part of the Tampa Pride Parade yesterday. And there were a number of signs that we saw on different floats or different people were holding that said, born this way. So I figured that was the Lady Gaga float. But born this way. Created by God. No mistake. This was not a mistake of nature. This is just how God created folks. So, born however we're born, so that God's works might be revealed in us. Yeah. So God's works, yeah, Mama Ruth.
Well, how about that none of us are born perfect, but yet we're here to do or accomplish something.
Do you all agree with her, or there anybody perfect here that wants to disagree with Mama Ruth? I didn't try to make that a generalization about all of us. Yeah, none of us is perfect. And one of the things we're reading in this book that the book club's doing is, sometimes it's in our moments of greatest defeat and failure that we find God and actually move on through the journey in a new, more enlightened way, if you will, because of what we had to go through. Kind of an interesting way to think about it. We go on, and it says in verse 5, Jesus says, as long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. So, what are these lights we're blinded by? What blinds us to seeing Jesus as Messiah, as Savior? Somebody used the term as Emmanuel, God with us. What blinds us to that?
There are a lot of lights out there that are trying to attract us.
Yeah. Can you name any of them, Michelle?
No.
Okay.
I suppose adultery and
Oh, adultery, yeah. That's like growing up too soon. Okay. Thanks for your help with that. Money.
Ego.
Well, only love of money. Only love of money.
Vanity.
Anybody blinded by the light on the way to church today?
Yeah, I was.
Scott, you were?
I had to drive east, so.
Oh, jeez. See, the sun will start thinking.
Anybody run into anybody's darkness and lose your sight for that moment and become part of the darkness and have to regain the light?
Yes.
You know what? That happens in the most common, everyday, routine things we're doing. It really does. For example, this morning before church, my wife sent me on an errand. She, of course, didn't go. I had to go alone. And I had to go to this establishment where it was off 301, and there was one lane into the establishment and one lane out of the establishment. And I'm like, I'm okay with that. So I go in, I do what I need to do. I'm coming out, and I'm in my one lane going out, and there's a long line coming in. So somebody in a big masculine truck, kind of like Sue's. You wouldn't talk before, you gotta live with it. So he comes in and he just like is looking at me like, I'm gonna run you over if you don't move. So I inched back. And then this woman comes right behind him in her little SUV, and I'm looking at her and she's looking at me, and I'm like, you're in my lane. Right? I'm right. You're not. Right? She was too impatient to wait in her lane. It was all about her getting in, right? But she ran into me. Didn't run into me. I mean, she ran into me metaphorically. Sorry. Only I run into objects with that car. Only that car gets broken because of me. So she didn't run into me, but she stopped and she looked at me, and I'm like, so what are you going to do? Want to back around all those people you just drove in front of and get back in line where you need to be? But she didn't. So I, in my best Al grumpiness, backed up. And if she's going by, you know, see, if Mary's in the car, she would have said, don't say anything, don't say anything, don't say anything. But I left the window rolled up. So what I said was, you need to stay in your lane. You need to stay in your lane. See, I got pulled into the darkness of her self-centeredness, became the darkness of my self-centeredness, and here's how I knew. There was a little boy in the back seat waving and smiling at me. And I was being Pastor Grunt. See, so there's so many ways to be blinded. We can be blinded by the lights of things that distract us, and some folks mention those. And we can be blinded when other people are doing things that we don't think are the right thing to do, but we get drawn into that righteousness, that self-righteousness, that judgment, that condemnation of somebody else. I got drawn into that, I don't know if you all do. And then we lose the light. And it takes a little child who opens an egg that says adultery that has to ground us and bring us back to the light, right? Is it not most often children and animals, the innocent ones, that bring us back to the light? And that's what we're to do. Not be blinded by those things that we get caught up in so quickly. It was a millisecond I was in that bad space. You know? And Mama Ruth's right. I wasn't born perfect. And I'm still not there, and I'm never going to get there. But I'm going to be reminded when I'm not in the light to get back in the light. To be the light, like Peter put on our sign a couple of weeks ago. I wrote yesterday in the pastor's message this from Genesis, which I thought was important for us to remember. That God said, let us make humankind in our image, according to our likeness. So God created humankind in God's image. In the image of God, God created us. And God blessed us. It's in the first chapter of Genesis. I know you've all read it. And what I want us to kind of get as we think about that and think about today's scripture is that with God, there are no others. There aren't others. There's only another. Another child of mine, another beloved of mine, another beautiful work of creation, as imperfect as we all are, that I love madly of mine. And that's what we need to remember. Be the light. Be that goodness. Be that love that you were created in. Because even though Good Friday's coming, he's just going to follow it. Amen.